You know, they found the temple of the first emperor of China, and I think they found it.
In 2025, after centuries of mystery and decades of hesitation,
And the famous tomb of the first emperor is part of this pattern. It is also a pyramid. It has also not been excavated. The terracotta army around it has been found.
scientists finally opened the tomb of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. And what they uncovered was far more terrifying than anyone imagined. Buried beneath layers of ancient traps, toxic mercury, and eerie silence was a chamber filled with secrets that defied science and history. What was meant to be a breakthrough became a chilling nightmare. But why was this tomb sealed so carefully? And what exactly did they unleash by opening it? The truth hidden underground is darker than we ever feared. Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb. It started with a simple dig. In 1974, farmers working a field near Xi'an struck clay, not rock or soil, but something molded, shaped, and eerily lifelike. They had unknowingly exposed the edge of one of the greatest archaeological marvels of all time, an entire army frozen in terracotta. Thousands of soldiers, horses, chariots, entertainers, and officials, each sculpted with haunting detail, stood buried in silence, not as toys of the past, but as protectors of something far greater. Buried deep beneath that very earth lies the unopened tomb of Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor, and the dangers it holds have kept it sealed for over 2,000 years. Qin Shi Huang is a name that echoes through Chinese history with unmatched weight. Crowned king of Qin in 247 BCE, he went on to unify 6 rival kingdoms and form the first centralized Chinese empire by 221 BC. He was a leader of impossible ambition. Yet, behind his practical achievements was a deep obsession with the mystical, the unknown, and most of all, immortality. That obsession found its ultimate expression in his mausoleum. Construction began when he was just 13 and continued for nearly 40 years, employing a staggering workers. According to ancient texts, his underground world was more than just a resting place. It was an empire recreated in darkness. Flowing rivers of mercury mimicked the Yangtze and Yellow rivers, and deadly traps were allegedly installed to kill any intruder. Crossbows were said to be set on hair triggers, ready to fire at the slightest disturbance. And while these stories might sound like legend, science adds unsettling weight to the warnings. A 2020 study revealed dangerously high levels of mercury in the soil surrounding the tomb, hinting that the rivers beneath may still be flowing, and still deadly. Despite enormous curiosity, the tomb remains sealed to this day. The fear of damaging its fragile interior or triggering ancient traps rumored to guard it has kept researchers at bay. Past excavation missteps, like the reckless digs at ancient Troy, serve as harsh reminders of what haste can destroy. Some scientists have suggested using cosmic ray muon scans to peer inside without touching a single brick, but progress remains painstakingly slow. Before we unravel what lies inside the emperor's hidden tomb, we need to understand the man who built it, starting with the extraordinary and ruthless path he carved to power. The ruthless rise of Qin Shi Huang. Long before he became known as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, he was simply Yingzheng, a child born into chaos. His birth in 259 BCE took place in the city of Handan, deep within enemy territory, while his father, Prince Yiren of Qin, was being held hostage in the Zhao state. But Yingzheng's story didn't begin with royalty. It began with manipulation, with Lu Buwei, a cunning merchant with political ambitions. Seeing opportunities where others saw captivity, he maneuvered Prince Yiren back to Qin and helped him ascend the throne. Not long after, Yingzheng was born, though whispered rumors still swirl about whether Lu Buwei had more than just political investment in the boy's rise. That's a juicy theory we'll explore in another video. When Yingzheng was just 13, his father died unexpectedly, and he became king of Qin. But the crown didn't come with power. Lu Buwei pulled the strings as regent, while Yingzheng's mother, now the Queen Dowager, stirred palace intrigue of her own. Her secret relationship with a man named Lao Ai, who was smuggled into court as a fake eunuch, became more than scandalous. It became treasonous. Lao Ai attempted a violent coup to overthrow the young king and take control. But Yingzheng was no passive puppet. At only 21, he struck with cold precision. Lao Ai was executed, his mother stripped of all power, and Lu Buwei was forced out of court in disgrace and to commit self-harm. In one clean sweep, the boy king became a sovereign in his own right, ruthless, focused, and unshaken by betrayal. These early power plays were no accident. Yingzheng grew up surrounded by lies, politics, and betrayal. He didn't inherit stability. He forged it from chaos. Every rival he crushed and every scandal he survived became fuel for his unstoppable ascent. From the shadows of palace intrigue, he rose into a figure no enemy could afford to underestimate. Now that history has revealed the ruler he truly was, it's what he left buried that sent scientists reeling, because the tomb held secrets far more disturbing than anyone expected. The terracotta army and the chilling mystery beneath. With the Qin throne firmly in his grip, Qin Shi Huang turned his attention to the afterlife, crafting a legacy as grand, secretive, and ruthless as his reign itself. From 221 to 210 BCE, Qin Shi Huang ruled over the first unified Chinese empire. Under his command, China saw sweeping reforms, standardized currency, weights, writing, and a vast web of roads. He ordered the construction of defensive walls that would later become part of the Great Wall and pushed technological innovations across his empire. But while he restructured society above ground, he was simultaneously overseeing something far more secretive below it: the construction of his mausoleum, a monumental project that would come to define his legacy. Spanning an estimated 56 square kilometers, the tomb was unlike anything the ancient world had seen. Built in the shadow of Mount Li in Shanxi province, it took decades to complete and required a staggering labor force. Historical texts, particularly from Han Dynasty historian Sima Qian, estimate that more than 700,000 workers were conscripted for the project. These weren't just laborers, they were craftsmen, engineers, artisans, and designers, each contributing to a massive underground realm built to mirror the emperor's empire. Within this subterranean kingdom stood one of its most mysterious features, the terracotta army. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots were arranged with military precision, each figure unique as if modeled after real people. The craftsmanship was extraordinary, reflecting not just artistic ambition, but a deep belief in an afterlife where the emperor would need protection and power. But with such elaborate secrecy came darker rumors. One persistent theory claims that many of those who built the tomb were executed upon completion to ensure that no secrets would escape. The idea of systematically silencing the workforce, over time, in waves, has circulated for centuries. It's a chilling thought, but given Qin Shi Huang's track record, not entirely unthinkable. His reign, while visionary, was also brutal. In a bid to control knowledge and thought, he infamously ordered the burning of Confucian texts and buried scholars alive, actions that triggered unrest and fear across his empire. The suppression of dissent wasn't just policy, it was practice. So, when it comes to protecting the secrets of his tomb, few doubt he would have resorted to extreme measures. Supporters of the mass execution theory suggest a grim logic. The mausoleum, believed to contain state secrets, treasures, and possibly pioneering technologies, wasn't just a tomb, it was a fortified extension of his rule. In ancient Chinese thought, the afterlife wasn't merely symbolic, it was real. And for Qin Shi Huang, maintaining control in death was just as important as it was in life. Still, skeptics argue that carrying out and concealing such a large-scale extermination would have been nearly impossible. No clear physical evidence of mass graves has been found, and such violence likely would have sparked resistance. Yet, the scale of the tomb and the emperor's obsession with control continue to fuel debate. And yet, for all the tomb's towering legends and its deadly rumors, nothing has captured the world's imagination quite like the silent, unblinking faces of the terracotta army. The rich diversity within Qin Shi Huang's military. What began as fragments pulled from dry earth soon revealed a force unlike anything history had ever seen. An entire army frozen in formation, not merely to impress, but to protect. More than 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, over 520 horses, and a cavalry of 150 steeds stand across 3 vast pits, each figure positioned with such deliberate care that it feels like they're waiting for a signal from their long-dead commander. But the true wonder lies not in their numbers, it lies in their individuality. Every warrior, from the lowest foot soldier to the high-ranking general, carries his own distinct face, posture, expression, and gear. No two are the same. Their hairstyles, uniforms, and weaponry are meticulously crafted to reflect the role each man held in Qin Shi Huang's army. Archers grip their bows with tension, infantry brace with spears and shields, and generals wear detailed armor that radiates command. It isn't just art, it's organization. These weren't generic models stamped from the same mold. They were built like clockwork. Artisans specialized in crafting heads, torsos, limbs, and hands, assembling them like pieces in an ancient assembly line. And yet, even within that efficient system, every statue was given a personal touch. A wrinkle here, a frown there, a slanted brow, or a battle-weary smirk. The craftsmanship didn't stop at the surface. The weapons carried by these soldiers weren't props. They were real. Archaeologists have uncovered swords, crossbows, and arrowheads so finely made that some remain sharp today. Many of them were coated with a chrome-based layer, an early anti-rust treatment that modern scientists didn't expect to see in 3rd century BCE China. This proof that Qin metallurgists were far ahead of their time. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect is how the army itself was positioned. The 3 main pits lie to the east of the emperor's burial mound, and scholars believe this wasn't accidental. It was a message, a barrier facing the direction from which rival states once threatened his power. The formations within the pits follow logical, military structures with passageways and ramps carefully designed for access and movement, reflecting not just artistry, but tactical intelligence. More than just a show of imperial strength, the terracotta army offers a powerful window into the emperor's vision of unity. Many figures reflect the faces, attire, and traditions of different regions and ethnic groups once divided before Qin's conquest. These soldiers weren't just guards. They were symbols of a new China, diverse, disciplined, and eternal. Their frozen march is more than a ceremony. It's a legacy carved in clay. Bronze chariots of power and the afterlife. While each clay soldier stood ready to defend their sovereign in the next world, it was the discovery of 2 bronze chariots near the mausoleum's western flank that revealed just how far Emperor Qin Shi Huang intended to take his empire into the afterlife. Only 20 meters from the terracotta army, buried beneath layers of compact earth, archaeologists unearthed 2 stunning bronze chariots, masterpieces of ancient craftsmanship that had remained hidden since around 210 BCE. These weren't ordinary ceremonial displays. They were intricately engineered vehicles of power and symbolism, designed to serve the emperor beyond death just as they had in life. The emperor's obsession with immortality is no secret. His entire mausoleum, sprawling across more than 56 square kilometers, was built not only as a tomb, but as a mirror of his earthly rule, a complete self-sustaining empire beneath the ground. He believed the spirit world required the same order, protection, and hierarchy as the living realm. This meant entertainers for leisure, animals for agriculture and transport, and most importantly, a military escort to guard his celestial throne. The bronze chariots were an essential part of this imagined eternal court. Each chariot had a unique role. The first, often called the High Chariot, was larger and more imposing. With its elevated wheels and heavier frame, it was clearly built for battlefield command. Drawn by 4 regal bronze horses, its design featured reinforced sides and an elevated compartment, allowing a commanding officer to survey the front lines, direct movements, and remain shielded from enemy attacks. Even in its miniature scale, the details were astounding. Tiny weapons, umbrellas, and utility tools were faithfully represented, capturing the readiness and power of Qin's war machinery. The second chariot, smaller and more enclosed, likely served as a ceremonial or posthumous transport vehicle, perhaps meant to carry the emperor's spirit through the gates of the afterlife. Its design was refined, adorned with delicate engravings and protective coverings, suggesting a more personal, prestigious use. The precision and artistic finesse in these chariots offer an extraordinary glimpse into the technological capability and symbolic vision of the Qin dynasty. But they weren't just vehicles, they were statements. Each bolt, ornament, and alloy used in their construction speaks to the emperor's unwavering determination to remain in command forever. These chariots weren't made to decay. They were made to endure. Like the emperor's name, and like the empire he refused to leave behind. But what if these bronze chariots weren't just for show? Could they be hiding clues to Qin Shi Huang's true afterlife plan? Stay tuned to find out. The emperor's final ride, and a deadly river below. Just beyond the towering war chariot stood its more elegant counterpart, a second bronze masterpiece that revealed a softer, more symbolic side of Emperor Qin Shi Huang's afterlife preparations.
In the winter of 1980, just west of the Great Tomb Mound at Xi'an that houses the emperor's final resting place, 2 bronze models of a horse and chariot team were unearthed.
This second chariot, commonly referred to as the Low Chariot, was a triumph of design and craftsmanship. Smaller in height, but grand in appearance, it wasn't made for battle, but for ceremony. With 4 bronze horses posed mid-trot, their reins and bridles sculpted in breathtaking detail, the chariot radiates regality and refinement. From its graceful curves to the delicate carvings on its body, every inch suggests this was the emperor's personal carriage for peaceful journeys, perhaps to glide through the heavens in his imagined spiritual dominion. Unlike its high-wheeled twin built for warfare, this low chariot seemed crafted for leisurely rides through imperial gardens or stately processions in the afterlife. Its lowered frame implied ease and comfort, while its artistic embellishments reflected the opulence of a ruler who spared no expense, even in death. The wheels alone were etched with such precise, flowing patterns that they seemed more like silk embroidery than metalwork. Historians suggest this design choice wasn't just for aesthetics. It symbolized the emperor's enduring status as a figure of divine luxury. Scholars have long debated the meaning behind this remarkable find. Were these chariots simply replicas, carefully scaled down from the emperor's real-life vehicles? Or were they symbolic guardians of Qin Shi Huang's eternal mobility, tools to ensure his rule would stretch beyond death, just as it had dominated life? Whatever the interpretation, the materials used, bronze paired with silver and gold inlays, make it clear that these artifacts were not mere ornaments. They were vital to the vision of a perfectly constructed afterlife. But the grandeur doesn't stop at wheels and war horses. Deep within the mausoleum itself lies a secret so strange and unsettling, it reads like myth, until science proved otherwise. According to records of the Grand Historian, written by Sima Qian around 100 years after the emperor's death, the underground palace beneath Mount Li wasn't just a tomb. It was a model of Qin Shi Huang's entire empire. Stars sparkled on the ceiling to mimic the night sky, and rivers, yes, actual rivers, flowed across a map of China etched into the floor. But they weren't made of water. They were mercury. Yes, mercury, the shimmering silver poison, was used to recreate the Yangtze, the Yellow River, and others. Ancient Chinese alchemists once believed mercury had the power to grant immortality. So for an emperor obsessed with living forever, it made sense. His tomb wasn't a burial chamber. It was a carefully crafted universe where he could reign eternally, gliding across toxic rivers in his bronze chariots. Modern studies back up these ancient tales. Scientists have detected abnormal levels of mercury in the soil above and around the unopened tomb, lending weight to the once dismissed story of flowing liquid metal beneath the surface. It's hard not to wonder, was this a symbol of eternal power or a deadly trap laid to keep intruders away? Tell us in the comments. Do you think these mercury rivers were for immortality or defense? Either way, what's hidden further inside the tomb might change everything we thought we knew. And that's exactly where we're headed next. Rivers of Mercury and the beasts of the afterlife. It's one thing to build a tomb fit for a king, but Emperor Qin Shi Huang imagined an entire world beneath the earth, complete with flowing rivers, watchful beasts, and mysterious forces that would guard him for eternity. Modern archaeological evidence has only deepened the mystery surrounding what lies beneath the massive mound at Mount Li. Soil samples taken near the site have shown mercury levels far beyond what naturally occurs, suggesting something astonishing: that ancient texts describing rivers of mercury inside the mausoleum may not have been mythical exaggerations after all. Sima Qian, the Grand Historian of the Han Dynasty, had written that flowing mercury represented China's greatest rivers, including the Yellow and the Yangtze. These weren't symbolic drawings. They were said to be actual streams of mercury running through a vast underground palace, replicating the empire Qin Shi Huang ruled in life. But this discovery raises a troubling question. How did the craftsmen of the 3rd century BCE obtain and handle such a hazardous material in such large quantities? And more puzzling still, how has it stayed fluid underground for over 2,000 years? The Qin dynasty's artisans were already known for their advanced skills in metallurgy and construction, but this suggests knowledge even more extraordinary, perhaps secret techniques long lost to time. This rich subterranean world wasn't limited to molten rivers. Scattered among the terracotta warriors and chariots are images and figures of rare and fantastical creatures, animals that served not only decorative roles, but spiritual ones. These weren't randomly placed statues. Each was chosen for its deeper meaning in Chinese culture. Some resembled animals native to China, like deer, cranes, or leopards, while others seemed plucked straight from legend, winged beasts and mythical hybrids that belonged more to folklore than natural history. Take, for instance, the exquisite renderings of birds found within the complex. These weren't ordinary carvings of doves or sparrows. They depicted sacred, sometimes exotic species, creatures believed to carry messages between Earth and the heavens. In ancient Chinese cosmology, birds symbolized spiritual ascent and freedom. Their presence near the emperor's final resting place may have been meant to guide his spirit upward, ensuring his continued power among the stars. Horses, too, appeared throughout the mausoleum, but not all were modeled for battle. Some bore ceremonial armor, their manes flowing and their poses serene, statues reflecting status rather than strength. These noble beasts may have been modeled after the prized horses gifted to the emperor from distant regions. In Chinese thought, horses represented endurance, speed, and prestige. To include them in the tomb was a statement of authority, a reminder that even in death, the emperor was destined to ride across his empire with commanding grace. Among the more unusual elements were creatures that don't clearly resemble any known animal. These figures likely drew inspiration from ancient myths. Animals said to protect rulers from harm or bring blessings of wealth and power. Their forms hinted at dragons, qilin, phoenixes, and other mythic guardians, and their placement inside the tomb seemed purposeful. Perhaps they were imagined as invisible sentinels, watching over Qin Shi Huang's soul and warding off evil in the afterlife. In the broader context, these figures reflect a fascination not just with power, but with the natural and supernatural worlds. The mausoleum reads like a secret encyclopedia, part tomb, part museum, part shrine, cataloging everything from the emperor's military might to the animals that roamed his lands, both real and imagined. It even whispers of the empire's vast biodiversity, pointing to a time when dense forests and sprawling grasslands teemed with life. These animals also speak to a long-lost culture of imperial pageantry, where rare beasts were gifted from afar and paraded as symbols of diplomacy and dominion. But it's the presence of Mercury, an element deadly to humans and yet central to alchemical quests for immortality, that remains the most haunting piece of all. To Qin Shi Huang, Mercury wasn't just a dangerous liquid, it was a sacred substance. In ancient Chinese medicine and mysticism, it was believed to hold the power of eternal life. The emperor's obsession with immortality was no secret. His emissaries once roamed distant lands searching for elixirs that might make him deathless. That same obsession seems to pulse through his tomb, where rivers of mercury might still ripple in darkness, guarding a man who dared to rule in life and in death. What other secrets remain sealed beneath the mound? That's a story still unfolding. The forgotten performers of Qin Shi Huang's eternal court. But buried beyond the armies, the chariots, and even the imagined rivers of Mercury, lies a more playful and human element within Qin Shi Huang's vast underground empire. One that danced, sang, and bent itself into impossible shapes to entertain a ruler obsessed not only with power, but with pleasure. While scholars and tourists often marvel at the military precision of the terracotta warriors, far fewer realize that deep within the same mausoleum complex are delicate, life-sized figures frozen in acts of performance.
It literally took my breath away. The sheer energy around the terracotta army it's indescribable until you're actually in their presence.
These are not soldiers preparing for battle, but acrobats caught mid-contortion, dancers mid-spin, and musicians holding instruments once played in echoing palace halls. Together, they open a rare window into the emperor's personal tastes and the leisure pursuits of his court, offering a different kind of immortality, the eternal echo of applause. In ancient China, entertainment wasn't merely a pastime. It was a ritual, an art form, and a symbol of refinement. Music and dance played central roles in religious ceremonies, seasonal festivals, royal processions, and banquets. For an emperor like Qin Shi Huang, who unified warring states in 221 BCE and declared himself China's first emperor, such performances were part of the daily expression of power and order. It makes sense, then, that he'd want those same pleasures to follow him into the next life. Among the most remarkable findings are terracotta acrobats, captured mid-performance with uncanny realism. Some balanced delicately on one hand, their legs frozen in mid-air. Others twist into poses that seem almost physically impossible, even today. These aren't just artistic decorations. They reflect a deeply respected skill in Qin society. Acrobatics that required years of training and held ceremonial significance. What might seem like a simple spectacle was likely rooted in ancient spiritual traditions, with movements believed to drive away evil or summon good fortune. Alongside these agile figures are musicians, forever holding the instruments that once filled the palace with sound. Some cradle stringed zithers or strum-like instruments, while others grip flutes or percussion tools typical of 3rd century BCE China. These details don't just tell us what the instruments looked like. They hint at the kinds of melodies that may have resonated through the emperor's grand halls. Every gesture carved into these terracotta forms whispers the forgotten notes of Qin dynasty music. Then there are the dancers, elegant and poised. They are depicted in mid-motion, their limbs stretched gracefully, robes caught in invisible winds. Their choreography, though lost to time, can still be imagined through the flow of their postures. Some scholars believe these dances had religious or spiritual meaning, perhaps performed during temple rituals or sacred court events. In the afterlife, they may have been tasked with continuing those same rites, offering not only beauty, but divine connection on behalf of their emperor. Altogether, these artistic terracotta companions reveal a lesser-known but essential truth about Qin Shi Huang's vision of eternity. His tomb wasn't just meant to showcase strength or grandeur. It was crafted to be a living world beneath the earth, where entertainment, ceremony, and art would endure as surely as soldiers and chariots. His afterlife was not just guarded, it was choreographed. Why Qin Shi Huang's tomb remains sealed. Hidden beneath layers of earth and ancient fear lies a chamber no one dares to open, the final resting place of Qin Shi Huang himself. Among the more surprising discoveries within the mausoleum complex are clay depictions of jesters and comic performers, their expressions frozen in time. These light-hearted figures, mimics, clowns, and jesters, once amused Emperor Qin Shi Huang with laughter and satire, suggesting that joy held as much value in his afterlife as war or ceremony. Alongside them, archaeologists uncovered miniature bronze and clay replicas of palaces, gardens, and towers, mirroring the grandeur of Qin's earthly empire. These intricate models reflect his desire to rule a functioning realm even after death, complete with carefully planned architecture. But it wasn't just beauty that filled the tomb. Weapons such as swords, halberds, and crossbows were also scattered across the site, some engraved or marked by their makers. Though once made for war, they now serve a more symbolic purpose, protecting the emperor's eternal domain from spiritual threats, ensuring that both order and splendor remain undisturbed for eternity. Yet, for all these open wonders, the heart of the mausoleum remains untouched. Beneath the massive mound that rises above the entire complex lies the central burial chamber, believed to hold not only the emperor's body, but treasures of unimaginable value. Despite knowing its likely location through ground-penetrating radar and other advanced scanning techniques, archaeologists have stopped short of opening it. Why? Because the cost of entry may be too high. Chinese cultural tradition teaches that disturbing the resting place of an ancestor, especially one as revered as Qin Shi Huang, is a serious offense. It's not just about protecting relics. It's about honoring the spiritual balance believed to exist within the tomb. To break that seal without due cause would risk disrupting the emperor's eternal peace and potentially invite misfortune on the living. For many, the idea of opening the tomb is not only a violation of sacred ground, but also a challenge to centuries of belief about life after death. There's also another reason: danger. Ancient records, especially those written by the historian Sima Qian, describe the chamber as booby-trapped with hidden arrows, mechanical devices, and even flowing rivers of mercury meant to poison intruders. Some of these warnings may be legend, but the unusually high mercury levels found in the soil around the tomb lend credibility to at least part of the tale. Without a complete understanding of what lies inside, or how to navigate its hazards, any intrusion risks both historical destruction and human life. For now, the door remains shut. The emperor's secrets, sealed beneath centuries of soil, continue to haunt the minds of archaeologists and historians alike. So, what do you think? Could the unopened tomb of Qin Shi Huang still hide relics far more intriguing, or ancient secrets even more dangerous than anything discovered so far? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to comment and subscribe.